Some of the greatest icons in motoring are also some of the greatest financial failures. The Lexus LFA, the Porsche 959, and the car that we're talking about today is the German equivalent, the BMW 8 Series. As the 1980s went on, BMW truly found their footing, with the likes of the 3 Series and the 5 Series. And as they became flush with cash and acclaim, they got a little more arrogant. And they stopped picking fights with the sports sedan market, and decided to go toe-to-toe in the Grand Touring market with the likes of Aston Martin and the high-end Mercedes S-Classes. In order to do that, they would have to design something more sleek and more luxurious than their 7 Series ever was. The 8 Series. It would be a continent-crushing GT car. That means it should be fast but also comfortable. It would have speed-sensitive power steering, the most advanced electronics, an entire cow's worth of leather, and of course pop-up headlights. It is the 80s after all. And the suspension was also tuned more towards comfort than the Nürburgring, angering many fanboys. Nothing changes, but it also has a multi-link rear axle and drive-by-wire throttle. It was the first BMW designed on a computer with CAD software used to pen the beautiful bodywork and streamline it down to a drag coefficient of just 0.29. CAD software was also used to cut some of the weight out, which is good because lightweight was not in the 8 Series vocabulary. With its tech and pillarless hard-body design, the 8 Series weighed at best 4,100 pounds, so if BMW wanted to fulfill the sport obligation of a sport GT car, they would need a killer engine. And luckily, BMW was pretty good at that sort of thing. You could have a 4-liter V8 making 262 horsepower if you're a plebe, or you could have a 5-liter, naturally aspirated V12 making 300 horsepower and 322 torque. And both the 840 Ci V8 and the 850i V12 were launched in 1990, and apart from the engines, they looked completely identical. Except the V12-powered 850 had 4 exhaust tips instead of the 2 exhaust tips on the 840, good way to distinguish between the two. And sales started phenomenally good, with orders sold out until 1993. Who cares? It was a modern equivalent of $147,000 base price. Everybody had money and life was great. Until the music stopped. An economic recession hit in 1990, and the Gulf War drove gas prices skywards in 1991, so people simply stopped buying these ultra-expensive cars. And BMW's marketing department saw this, and said, if people aren't buying our expensive GT car, then we'll just build an even more expensive sports car. Yeah, these are the same guys that thought the E30 M3 wouldn't sell very well, so I guess it's kind of on brand for them at this rate. Now, the fastest 850 was originally the 1993 Ci, with the aforementioned 322 horsepower V12. But then, BMW launched the CSI, which was an M car that wasn't an M car. It had lower and stiffer suspension, new bumpers, a quicker steering ratio, a 6-speed manual as the only option, ventilated disc brakes, 4-wheel steering, and even BMW Motorsport on the door handles if it wasn't obvious to you. And it also had a new engine, the S70 B56, and if that name sounds familiar, that's because it's a sibling to the S70-3 that powered the V12 LMR to BMW's only win at Le Mans, and the S70-2, which powered the McLaren F1. Those are some pretty good siblings to have. The 5.6-liter V12 made 375 horsepower and propelled the 2-ton coupe to 60 in 5.9 seconds and onto an unrestricted top speed of 180 miles an hour. It was a sports car, alright, and it was fantastic. And it made you wish you got a proper M8, because imagine what they could have been able to do with that platform. Well, I'm about to make you feel a lot worse, because M Division did get their hands on the 8 Series. The E31 M8 was designed to stick it to Ferrari. It also had an S70 V12, now up to 6.1 liters. But this S70 had individual throttle bodies, carbon fiber intake manifolds, and variable valve timing to make 640 horsepower. It was actually more powerful than the McLaren. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. In order to make it handle like an M car should, they gave it a wider track width with flared arches, a differential oil cooling system, bucket seats, Lexan windows, and bodywork made out of thin plastic. That weight savings cut out 1,000 pounds from the CSI. Imagine shaving half a ton out of the modern M5. That is what the M8 did. And that gave it a 0 to 60 time of 4.2 seconds and a conservative top speed of 200 miles an hour. It was supposed to be a genuine Super GT thrasher of Ferrari. But it never saw the light of day, as it would have cost over $360,000 in today's money, and with a recession, the world simply wasn't in the mood for it. And I do mean never saw the light of day, because for some reason or another, BMW didn't even acknowledge its existence until 2010, instead keeping it in their poison storage. Yes, that is the actual English translation of their storage facility. I'm not making that up. And to be honest, the M8 perfectly embodies the 8 Series as a whole. A brilliant failure. BMW only sold about 30,000 of them in 9 years and lost a huge amount of money on the program, so in 1999 the 8 Series disappeared for good. And its role was sort of filled by the 6 Series, which was both a coupe and a sedan. BMW's naming system gets a little confusing. It got taken over by the coupe, but then BMW got bored of the 6 Series and replaced it with the G16 8 Series, coming back out of the blue in 2018. It has all-wheel drive, a carbon fiber tub, and a smart gearbox which predicts shifts based on GPS data. Cool. It also marked the first time the 8 was offered as both a sedan and a convertible. Ironically, despite the advancements in materials, the G15 weighs almost exactly as much as the E31 original, although that's likely because of the safety features and the crumple zones and etc. So, you know, I guess that's a good thing, but I want my cars to be light, damn it. And it is a lot faster. The slowest 840i has a 3-liter inline-6 making 335 horsepower, already making it faster than the top-of-the-line 850 CSI from old. Meanwhile, the 850 xDrive has a 4.4-liter twin-turbocharged V8, making 523 horsepower. So, already, out of the gates, the 8 Series was a pretty damn good car. But then BMW finally righted a wrong when they launched the M8 in 2019. The retuned 850 V8 now makes 591 horsepower and 553 torque, which is 50 horsepower less than the 90s M8. Can we explain that? No? Now, yes, you can get the competition version, which is a far better vehicle. That's what I would get if I happen to have over $200,000 lying around, and I had to get an 8 Series. So it has over 600 horsepower, 4-wheel steering, and an all-wheel drive system that, yes, can be converted to rear-wheel drive only at the push of a button, because at the end of the day, it's still an M car and it needs to be able to do some serious skids. But if you leave it in all-wheel drive, and bearing in mind BMW's history of underreporting true horsepower figures, the M8 competition has a 0 to 60 time of 2.7 seconds, putting it squarely in supercar territory. Small wonder then that this is the car they chose to go racing with at Le Mans in the GTE class, appropriately called the M8 GTE. And it was okay, kind of, with 3 wins in its entire career, before getting replaced by the M4 GT3 in 2022. So while it wasn't very successful, it did give us some very factually accurate memes, so I can't criticize the car all that much.